Good morning, students. Today we are going to start new chapter, chapter number 14, Respiration in Plants. In this chapter, we are going to study following topics. First topic, do plants breathe? Second, glycolysis. Third, fermentation. Fourth, aerobic respiration. Fifth, respiratory balance sheet. Sixth, amphibolic pathway. Seventh, respiratory quotient. Let us first understand what respiration is. All of us breathe to live. But why is breathing so essential to live? What happens when we breathe? Also, do all living organisms, including plants and microbes, breathe? If so, how? All living organisms need energy for carrying out daily life activities, be it absorption, transportation, movement, reproduction, or even breathing. Where does all this energy come from? We know we eat food for energy, but how is this energy taken from food? How is this energy utilized? Do all foods give the same amount of energy? Do plants eat? Where do plants get their energy from? And microorganisms, for their energy requirements, do they eat food? You may wonder at the several questions raised above. There may seem to be very disconnected, but in reality, the process of breathing is very much connected to the process of release of energy from food. Let us try and understand how this happens. All the energy required for life processes obtained by oxidation of some macromolecules that we call food. Only green plants and cyanobacteria can prepare their own food by the process called photosynthesis. They trap light energy and convert it into chemical energy that is stored in the bonds of the carbohydrates like glucose, sucrose, and starch. We must remember that in green plants too, not all cells, tissues, and organs photosynthesize. Only cells that contain chloroplast, that are most often located in the superficial layers, carry out the photosynthesis. Hence, even in green plants, all other parts that are non-green need food for oxidation. Hence, food has to be translocated to all non-green parts. Animals are heterotrophic, that is, they obtain their food directly or indirectly from the plants. Those who directly eat plants are called herbivores. Those who eat plant-eating animals are called carnivores. Saprophytes, like fungi, depend on dead and decaying matter. What is important to recognize is that ultimately all the food that is required for life processes comes from photosynthesis. This chapter deals with cellular respiration, or the mechanism of breakdown of food materials within the cell to release energy, and the trapping of this energy for synthesis of ATP. Photosynthesis, of course, takes place within the chloroplast, whereas the breakdown of complex molecules to yield energy takes place in cytoplasm, and in mitochondria, the breaking of C-C bonds of complex compounds through oxidation within the cell, leading to the release of considerable amount of energy called respiration. The compounds that are oxidized during the process are called respiratory substrates. Usually, carbohydrates are oxidized to release energy, but proteins, fat, and even organic acids can be used as respiratory substances in some plants under certain conditions. During oxidation within a cell, all the energy contained in respiratory substrate is not released free into the cell or in a single step. It is released in a series of slow steps controlled by enzymes, and it is trapped as chemical energy in the form of ATP. Hence, it is important to understand that the energy released by oxidation in respiration is not used directly but is used to synthesize ATP, which is broken down whenever and wherever energy needs to be utilized. Hence, ATP acts as the energy currency of the cell. This energy trapped in ATP is utilized in various energy requiring processes of the organisms, and the carbon skeleton produced during respiration is used as precursors for biosynthesis of other molecules in the cell. Do plants breathe? Well, the answer to this question is not quite so direct. Yes, plants require oxygen for respiration to occur, and they also give out carbon dioxide. Hence, plants have system in place that assure The availability of the oxygen. Plants, unlike animals, have no specialized organ for the exchange of the gases, but they have stomata and lenticels for this purpose. There are several reasons why plants can get along without respiratory organs. First, each plant part take care of its own gaseous exchange needs. There is very little transport of gases from one plant part to another. Second, plants do not present great demands for this exchange. Root, stem, leaves respire at the rates far lower than the animals do. Only during photosynthesis are large volume of gas exchanged, and each leaf is well adapted to take care of its own needs during these periods. When cell photosynthesize, availability of oxygen is not a problem in these cells since oxygen is released within the cell. Third, the distance that gases must diffuse even in large bulky plants is not great. Each living cell in the plant is located quite close to the surface of the plant. This is true for leaves. You may ask, but what about thick woody stems and roots? In stems, the living cells are organized in thin layers inside and beneath the bark. They also have openings called lenticels. The cells in the interior are dead and provide only mechanical support. Thus, most cells of the plant have at least a part of their surface in contact with the air. This is also facilitated by the loose packing of parenchyma cells in the leaves, stem, and roots, which provide an interconnected network of air spaces. The complete combustion of glucose, which produces carbon dioxide and water as end products, yields energy, most of which is given out as heat. Overall reaction is glucose is oxidized by 6 molecules of oxygen and gives out 6 molecules of carbon dioxide, 6 molecules of water plus energy, most of which is released in the form of heat. If this energy is to be useful to the cell, it should be able to utilize it to synthesize other molecules that the cell requires. The strategy that the plant cell uses to catabolize glucose molecule in such a way that not all the liberated energy goes out as heat. The key is to oxidize glucose not in one step but in several small steps, enabling some steps to be just large enough such that the energy released can be coupled to ATP synthesis. How this is done is essentially that story of respiration. During the process of respiration, oxygen is utilized and carbon dioxide and water and energy are released as products. The combustion reaction requires oxygen, but some cells live where oxygen may or may not be available. Can you think of such situations where oxygen is not available? There are sufficient reasons to believe that the first cell on this planet lived in the atmosphere that lacked oxygen. Even among present day living organisms, we know several that are adapted to anaerobic conditions. Some of these organisms are facultative and aerobes, while in other the requirement of aerobic condition is obligate, that is compulsory. In any case, all living organisms retain enzymatic machinery to partially oxidize glucose without the help of oxygen. This breakdown of glucose to pyruvic acid is called glycolysis. This we will study in the next lecture.